Hi folks, Paul Taylor here once again from Truckers Justice Center, saying hello to you on the Real Women in Trucking cruise. And I'm just going to speak briefly about lease purchases because Desiree asked me to speak about them. Now, lease purchases, there aren't a lot of things we can do about getting into bad lease purchase programs. I will state that in my experience as an attorney of almost 34 years exclusively in trucking, or almost exclusively in trucking, and prior to that, back when I was a dispatcher, when this whole lease purchase scheme was dreamed up by Midwest Distribution out of Fort Scott, Kansas back in the late 70s, I've never really seen a good lease purchase program. I think they're bad business deals on the whole. Are there good ones out there? I haven't seen them yet, but I will state there is that possibility. And there's several reasons why they're bad business deals. First of all, it's a very expensive form of financing. Let's face it, a lease purchase is nothing but a mechanism designed to enable you to buy a truck. And when I talk about lease purchases, I'm talking about trucking company sponsored lease purchases, and some that are just offered outright by a leasing company with complete freedom to take your truck wherever you want. So let's look at generally why they're bad business deals. First, the financing is very expensive. If you look at the effective interest rate on lease purchasing, if you take the principal amount you're paying for the truck and calculate the amount of payments you'll make over time, you'll find that the interest rate can run somewhere between 18 and 40%. I mean, it's just a fact. This is an expensive form of financing. If you look at it from the additional standpoint, many drivers will overpay for a truck. I get calls where drivers will call me and say, Mr. Taylor, I'm in a lease purchase program and they took my truck. And I'll tell them, is your name on the title? No. Then it's not your truck. What kind of truck is it? Well, it's a 2006 Cascadia. And I said, okay, how many miles on it? 1.8 million. So, okay, so that truck's worth about $20,000 on it. What do you owe? Well, I paid $140 for it. Well, no, the question is, what do you owe? Why owe $60? Well, that truck isn't worth anything. So that's the other thing to be aware of. Make sure the truck is worth what you're paying for it if you do a lease purchase program. Now, I still am not in favor of them, even if you're not overpaying for it, because the financing is very, very, very expensive. The other thing that you run a risk of is that whoever you're buying that truck through may have it secured with some sort of loan. Some of you might have been around long enough to remember a trucking company called Aero Trucking or Aero Transportation. I believe at the time they were the largest flatbed carrier in the United States, based out of, I believe, Oklahoma City or Tulsa. And what happened with Aero was they had lots of drivers out there running under their lease purchase trucks, and Aero ended up closing their doors, and the bank that had secured all those trucks in Aero's terminals and Aero's receivables ended up taking those trucks. And those drivers who thought they were actually going to buy a truck ended up losing them. So those are some of the reasons why they are bad business deals. So you run the risk of losing it if the leasing company doesn't pay its bills or has cross-collateralized. For example, you could have the XYZ leasing company and the ABC trucking company, both owned by the same company or holding company or same individuals, and they could be cross-collateralized, which means they pledge the assets of both companies to secure loans. The other thing with a lot of lease purchases, and this is one thing to watch for, is what kind of freedom do you have? Do you really have that freedom to take that truck and go somewhere else? Or do you have to come up with more money? So, for example, suppose you have a truck that is a Success Leasing truck. Success Leasing is owned by Robert Lowe, who also owns Prime. And suppose they've sweet-talked you into thinking you're going to make a whole heck of a lot of money with your experience as a truck driver just getting out of the training program, and they persuade you to buy that, to look at doing a lease purchase. Well, you may not have the option under those lease purchases to sit and take that truck and decide you don't like Prime, or you don't like Swift, or you don't like Heartland, and you want to go to Martin or US Express, you may not have that kind of freedom to go ahead and do so. So those are some of the things that I think militate against a smart driver doing a lease purchase. If you want to buy a truck, work up a good credit rating and buy it. I mean, that's the thing to do. And people who do not have extensive experience, if they have no mechanical ability, like me, I barely turn a screwdriver, you have no business owning your own truck. If you have no business experience, you have no business buying a truck. And finally, you shouldn't pay too much for a truck. So these are things to watch for. You know, you need to be experienced to do this.